Good evening, everyone. We welcome you to the third session of our fifth series of Vocal for Local, a very wonderful initiative started by Thane branch where we encourage and we request the local speakers from the MMRDA region to come up and share their knowledge with us. Today, we have a very young and dynamic chartered accountant, Harshvardhan Bapat, a very young, but do not go on his age. He has immense experience in the field of taxation, GST, and his detailed introduction will follow up in a while. Before moving ahead with the main event, I would like to thank each one of you for turning out in large numbers. You have been a great support to the Thane branch in the last couple of years, and this has really encouraged us to a large extent to serve more and do more for the branch. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of our regional council member, CA Kamlesh Sabu sir, past chairmen who are there with us over the conference over here, and all the managing committee members over here. We'd also like to acknowledge the presence of CA Mangesh Kinare, the past central council member. Today we had a vaccination drive at the Singhania school where we had 100 plus CA members and their family who got vaccinated. Tomorrow again we have the same slots. The slots will be between 2 to 4 p.m. So if anyone still wishes to get vaccinated, you can get in touch with me or any of the managing committee members and we'll be happy to help you out with the vaccination. Uh, During the event, I request everyone to kindly keep themselves on mute so that there is no intervention during the event and we have a very free flow of the entire seminar. Barring this, at the students, the CA Rajni Sharma, who's the Vikasa chairman, has been organizing various events. For the foundation, we are coming up with a crash course. So if you have any crash course students, you have any foundation students who are in touch with you, kindly ask them to get in touch with the Thane Vikasa so that they can get the best benefit out of it. Without any further ado, now I request CA Suren Thakur Desai, the past chairman of Thane branch, to give a formal introduction of today's speaker, Harshvardhan Bapat.
Thank you, Swapnil. Startup and taxation is a new angle to the chartered accountants practice. And today's speaker is CA Harshvardhan Bapat, a young dynamic fellow who graduated in 2012 from Mumbai University. And immediately next year, he got the chartered accountancy degree in first attempt. He is qualified. He is holding qualified diploma in IFRS conducted by ACCA UK in 2016. Qualified as DISA in 2016. Cleared registered valuers examination in March 21. As far as his professional achievements are concerned, he has done articleship with BK Khare and Company from 2011 to 2014. Post-qualification experience he has obtained from BK Khare and Company. Then he joined VA Bapat and Company Chartered Accountants from 2016. His areas of interest are tax litigations and transaction advisory. One more, what you say is a figure in its cap. He was the convener of Chembur CP Study Circle for 2016-17 and 17-18. So, I now request Harshvardhan Bapatji to lecture.
Thank you very much, Suren sir, for such a kind introduction. First of all, good evening to everybody, respected regional council members, branch committee members, and everybody, past chairmen of Thane branch, and every elected member, honorary chartered accountants, everyone who's present here. And firstly, this when Asawa sir asked me, okay, which topic do you want to pick up for this lecture, and which you would be interested in doing that. So immediately the first thing that came to mind was this topic, startups and taxation. In recent times, startup is a buzzword which is present everywhere. On every third or fourth client or third or fourth inquiry that comes in, they start by saying, okay, we are just a startup. We were established in like 2018, 2019, something like that. And then they tell their story. And
Biju beta.
hello. Okay. So it was very important for me, or rather, I'm very passionate about this topic, that startup and taxation, and especially after the Startup India scheme that the government launched in 2016. We have seen a surge in the number of startups, innovative businesses, new ideas that are coming to the foreground of commerce. And it is imperative that as chartered accountants or as practitioners, first we should be ready to cater any request that comes in with respect to Startup India portal, as well as during the past like 2.5 years, when we were seriously handling Startup India registrations, DPIIT registrations, we faced a lot of trouble in the initial phase, that lots of queries were coming in. There was insufficient guidance as to what needs to be done in what stage, how to troubleshoot any queries that are raised. So I thought it would be necessary to at least share my experience with the audience over here. I'm pretty sure that some of the members, if not most of the attendees present today, would be more equipped with the knowledge and experience, or would have handled much more in-depth startup handholding, etc. But these are just my 2 cents to the whole knowledge that we share. Okay, so this presentation is taken up in 3 phases. Yeah, the 3 basic practice areas that we have with respect to any startup. That is, the first one is how to register a startup, what constitutes a startup, and how to get it registered on the Startup India portal, how to get a recognition. Second is income tax provisions with respect to registered startup. That is, we discuss the 80 and other benefits which are available to the business. The third part is the income tax provisions with respect to angel investment in startups, the dreaded angel tax that has been in the news for the past few years, section 56(2) 7B. This will be the general sequence of how things will go. And at the end of it, I'll also share a few statistics which will actually help us understand or appreciate the scope of practice which is available to us, because India is a budding economy, and the new startup ecosystem that is coming up is going to be fruitful for everyone who is a stakeholder or involved in the growth of these startups. The first part is distributed in, we'll answer these 5 things in the first part. That what is a startup in a general sense? What is Startup India scheme? Who are eligible startups? The steps required to be recognized as a startup, and benefits available to a recognized startup. Obviously, there is a difference between what we understand a startup in a general sense and what will be the framework of law as far as the Startup India schemes and benefits are concerned. What is a startup in a general sense? Well, a startup is started by individual founders to search for a repeatable, scalable business model. When we when we use the term startup, what comes to mind is just a bunch of IT guys sipping some coffee cups through their fancy mugs and wearing nothing but casuals, chappals, and just walking around with their PCs and writing code and different things. But that is not exactly how every startup looks. Some IT-based conventional startups do, in non-conventional startups do look a bit like that. But many of these ventures are started by normal working class people who are seriously, who have had, let's say, an epiphany that something can work, a key idea that has struck them, that they look at the market in such a way that they find some gap or find some area which needs to be catered. Well, if you see in the examples which I've given below, uh, I've mentioned Zomato, which is the most, I would say, anticipated IT upcoming IPO proposed, which is coming up on the stock market. And what we all know what Zomato does, it is more of an aggregator. It just ties up hotels with the ultimate customer, and it just provides delivery service. So such a business model, by deriving such business model, by looking at the market, the gaps that are available, and most of the startups show these four key characteristics. One is that the business venture is newly emerged. It should not, or it does not usually get constituted by existing businesses or existing business groups, or if it has been newly constituted by an existing business group as a subsidiary or a joint venture, then in general sense also we don't call it a startup, because it has a good backing of and experience of established entrepreneurs. The second aspect is high uncertainty. The success rates of startups are like a coin toss, that all the cards, they need to play all the cards well, they need to have a lot of patience, and still there is high uncertainty. But as we know that there is a direct correlation between risk and rewards, the higher the uncertainty, the more chances of the higher the uncertainty and the successful business model, that generally fetches a higher valuation. That has been the trend, because I don't know if you have read this. 3 days back, one startup from a village in Kerala just beat the highest funding unicorn in India, Paytm. The startup is Byju's. It has agreed to raise some $350 million. The news was there 3-4 days back. So something of an unconventional learning, whether that business will succeed or not, there's a high uncertainty involved with that. The third is continuously evolving business model. The business model generally, when it is conceptualized by these founders, is not in a solid state, not in a nobody is confident whether this will work or not. And obviously there are a lot of iterations which are involved, and it is evolving continuously. If it does not evolve, then there is a fair chance that it may not succeed. And the fourth one is the idea needs to be viable. Okay, any idea, we cannot pass simply a judgment that okay, this idea is viable, this idea is not viable. We don't know. But there needs to be skepticism with respect to the idea or the proposal that a client or a prospective client brings into our table, saying that okay, this is what I have in mind, can you at least comment whether this may work, this may not work. There needs to be some skepticism which we apply to the actual idea, how it will work, how it will may not work. Some popular examples of startups that have gone big are Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Apple, Microsoft, Alibaba, Oyo, Zomato. One common characteristic of these startups is that there is a high chance, as we said, high uncertainty. There is a high chance of failure. But there was this statement by Jeff Bezos of Amazon that for all 100 ideas that Amazon tries, even if 5 or 10 of them work out eventually, they make up for all the 100 losses that have come up. So that is a good inspiration, I would say, for anybody who is willing to take the plunge into uncertainty. What is Startup India scheme? Well, the Startup India scheme that was launched by government in 2016, it is based on 4 cornerstones. One is their experience with pre-scheme startups. It was not like startups did not exist before the scheme. Rather, most of these successful ones have started doing their business even before the Startup India scheme was launched. Second is the importance of startup ecosystem. We'll come to the demographics of the Indian economy, and then we'll get to know the importance of startup ecosystem. Third one is the incentives to eligible startups. Fourth one is the definition of eligible startups. Obviously, the government will also be a bit skeptical that, okay, not all businesses can get these incentives or subsidies that are available to any eligible business. So they have set up a definition for eligible startups. We'll see these points one by one. Right. So India is a country with a population of almost 1.4 billion, with an active workforce of about 60 to 70%. So you can imagine the total number of active workforce, the chances of getting a job in this environment, the traditional environment of businesses. We all know, we have all been through that, or we have all seen very closely at how competitive it is. So it was very necessary to have a new startup ecosystem for our economy to have a rather boost in the organic growth of this economy. Obviously, the startup scheme was launched in 2016. And this is obviously based on the experiences which are experiences of the pre-scheme startups which have represented to the government. The government has also had talks with these companies as to what difficulties they face, what is the ease of doing business that the government wants to bring in for new companies, new businesses. And accordingly, the Startup India scheme was framed. Okay. We'll see the definition of eligible startups. Well, this definition of eligible startups is as follows: that the eligible startup is either a private limited company or registered as a partnership firm or a LLP. The entity has not completed a period of 10 years from the date of incorporation. So the private limited company and all the corporate incorporated bodies are there. Partnership now, for when we go and see the actual registration dashboard for Startup India, what they ask is something for the incorporation certificate at the end of this, one of the attachments that are there. I'm a bit skeptical as to this part, the partnership firm part, because very rarely, even though the efficiency has improved a bit, but very rarely have I seen an efficient response from the register of firms with respect to the incorporation certificate of a conventional partnership firm. So usually when a business comes and asks that, okay, what do you recommend that we incorporate as, it is generally somewhere between a private limited company or LLP, because partnership firms, yes, it has its benefits, but the administration takes a lot of time to get it done. The entity has not completed a period of 10 years. Okay, this 10 years is the limit that, okay, any incorporated body beyond 10 years which has completed 10 years will not be eligible to be called a startup. This condition may be, okay, we'll come to the comment section at the end of it, where a few of the problems which we have faced and a few clients have faced, wherein we'll discuss this 10-year criteria. It has an annual turnover not exceeding 100 crores for any financial year since incorporation. Okay, fair. If the business is reaching a turnover of 100 crores, then generally it is doing things right and it has grown beyond what we can call a startup. Next is that it is working towards innovation, development, improvement of products, processes or services, or if it is a scalable business model with a high potential of employment generation or wealth creation. We'll see this point in detail in the next slide. So I'm keeping this aside for a moment. And it is not formed by splitting up or reconstructing a business already in existence. This is very important because first, as we discussed, that it cannot be a subsidiary, it cannot be a part of a group of companies. And secondly, reconstructing a business already in existence is also not allowed. You cannot divest or do any merger, amalgamation, reconstruction transactions and call it a newly incorporated company and have a newly incorporated company and call it a startup. There are certain restrictions. We'll see when we reach 80IC that there are certain restrictions on the what we can say, the use of plant and machinery also, which will be used in this business of this startup, that it cannot be pre-owned, it needs to be new in the defined sense. We'll come to this innovation clause. It's a bit interesting. Okay. So working towards innovation, development or improvement of products or processes or services, or if it is a scalable business model with a high potential employment generation or wealth creation. So first of all, what constitutes innovation, development, etc., or process improvements? That is as such a bit vague. How to determine the innovation, obviously, and who determines the innovation, the documentation which is required, what constitutes a scalable business model. Well, in all the startup applications that we have done, it's been our experience that the DPIIT, the Department for Promotion of this Innovation Internal Trade, it does check what we are doing or what the client is doing very thoroughly. It does go through the documents and the submissions that we have made, and then it also has experts which are there on their panel in all the industries, wherein they scrutinize the application. And many a times, even during the initial registration phase on the Startup India portal, there are a few queries that come to the clients that, okay, you have mentioned that this is the business or revenue model that you have, but we don't see any mention or experience in that with respect to your company or with respect to the market also. How do you propose to solve that? Something like that. So documentation becomes very important in this because clients most of the times, I mean, I'm borrowing this phrase from one of my friends actually, that clients most of the times when come to you, they are more of an artist. They have the concept, they have that imagination that how this will go about. To help them put it in words and to input it in such a words that whatever the reader reads is what we want to tell them, and the idea is wholly and completely transmitted to the reader, is something of a skill that I think as chartered accountants we possess. So that becomes very important, crucial at the initial stage. Scalable business model. So scalable, what does scalable mean? Scalable would mean that the business model, the way delivery is done and cash is received, uh, that business model, it can be repeated over a large population. And when that repetition happens, it can be done without much supervision from the initial promoters of the company. Then potential for employment generation or wealth creation. Obviously, if you want to be registered as a startup, if you want some benefits from the government, then the government will look at some or the other welfare which will happen because of your business. That okay, either employment is getting generated, some unnatural or rather large amounts of wealth is getting created, which is beyond normal. And obviously we have to prove that on paper, that what is has been the business trend, what is the market survey, what does it show that behind, let's say, every 10 service products we need 100 people. Then we have to prove it by documenting it correctly. And DPIIT does go through each and every one of this, let me tell you, and it goes through in quite the depth. Yeah, so we come to DPIIT recognition. DPIIT stands for Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade. Sorry, I mentioned innovation in the earlier slide. So it is Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade. All the startups that we saw, startup in a general sense, have to apply to the DPIIT for getting recognized as an eligible startup. So all the things that we saw here, these things need to be documented and proven to DPIIT to get recognized as an eligible startup. The application for recognition has to be done online on www.startupindia.gov.in. What I've done here is I have taken some screenshots. I'll quickly run through them. That it will help when, let's say, you're doing some work for a client. It will, I hope it plays a role as a good reference point. When you visit Startup India, this is the screen that you generally see. We have to go to this corner, the top right corner, where we can see the face or the silhouette of a man. And when we click on that, we get the login option and register option. We should first click the registration option to get the startup registered. We have to create an account, name, email ID, mobile number, password, confirm password. Unlike, I mean, I don't know whether anybody else has had this experience, but some government websites such as TDS, CPC and all, at times the OTPs or the registered email IDs, if we take any private domain, then sometimes there is some trouble in the mail reaching that private domain. But that does not seem to be the case here. Any email ID and mobile number and some valid password, obviously they have that password criteria, minimum 8 letters, alphabetic caps, small case, etc. Once we do that, there is some OTP validation and we get to this screen, login screen. Enter your email ID, password, email ID that we entered over here, and the password that we entered over here, and we can just simply log in. We have an access to Startup India portal now. Now things get a bit interesting. So we have now successfully registered as a user in the Startup India portal. I would draw your attention over here, the left side of the screen, where below the silhouette of this person, there is a orange box which says DPIIT recognition. We have to click on this box and this form will open. We will see one by one what all things are asked in this form and how to fill it. First of all, it asks entity details, what type of constitution it is. We have seen only 3 constitutions are allowed: private limited, LLP, and registered partnership form. The industry sector and categories, we have to be very careful about what description we are giving of the business of the client or the company or entity, because the list is very thorough. At times there are even 30 different options which are, and sub options which are available in different industries. So you have to be very specific as to what we are putting in. Similarly, in categories, it asks whether this model it is some IT based, some app based, etc. Next, it asks for company incorporation number, CIN. Once we put in that CIN, the name, entity, incorporation, and incorporation date are automatically picked up. If the incorporation date is beyond 10 years, then the application itself highlights that over there. We have to manually feed in the PAN and certify that whatever the key details we have mentioned are correct. Next, we come to the address and other details. This address needs to be in the same language as the one which is given on your certificate of incorporation, very clearly. So the hyphens, the forward slash, and everything that is mentioned, the way it is mentioned in the incorporation certificate, we have to mention it as it is over here. Authorized representative details. Now, the authorized representative over here can be anybody who is involved with the company. It can be a director of the company, it can be the employee of the company, or it can be a third party consultant also. But we need to make sure that their approval or that letter of authority is properly documented at the client's end, and we have a copy for that, just in case if it is asked for afterwards. The mobile number and email ID become very crucial, because all the messages, the information for new schemes, etc., are passed on this number and email ID, which are then finally registered with the Startup India portal. It can be different from the user ID, email ID, and password. The login credentials for user, these two can be different. Directors and partners details. Now, over here, the director partner details need to be properly filled in. What we generally do is we take a representation or sort of a table in this format from clients themselves, so that there is no confusion. What we also need to take care is that whenever directors or partners are increasing, decreasing, or changing, there is some change in these details in the future, we need to update those changes in the Startup India portal as well. The Startup India portal needs to be updated, because ultimately the goal is not to just be recognized as a startup, but ultimately all the ATISC benefits, everything that we need to apply for, and this scrutiny of the ATISC application, the correlation between your all statutory documents, including your memorandum articles, everything is done with your user profile also, which you feed in over here. So be sure to keep this updated whenever a change happens. Yes. Now we come to the key part of this your registration, DPIIT recognition. It asks for the current number of employees, which is pretty easy. But it also asks us about what is something written like ideation, validation, early traction, and scaling. Ideation, validation, early traction, and scaling in the same sequence are generally the 4 stages in which the startup operates. we'll take one by one. Ideation. Ideation meaning that, okay, you have an idea for a product or a service. That idea, that brainstorming, that thing is still happening. There is yet not enough clarity on what the business model is going to be, how the revenue is going to come in, what is the actual thing that we are going to sell, what service we are going to give, what process we are going to improve. It is still in a state of flux. That is the state of ideation. If the client is still having vague ideas as to how he is going to conduct the business, let's say the testing or acceptance testing revenue model is not yet built up, then ideation stage needs to be selected. Validation. That you have built a minimum viable product. You have thought of the idea, you have tried to crystallize it, and you have arrived at a minimum level of service delivery or product delivery, as the case may be. Maybe it is still going through, if it is an application, it is still going through UAT, user acceptance test. If it is a service model, then maybe it is still some few number of users are still using it. There is not enough demand or not enough confidence in the promoters themselves to make that product live or make that service live and market it so that it gets good number of customers, live customers. If the startup is in that state, then we should select validation. What we have selected here is early traction, because the company that had come to us for this, it already had a working model, a working product for delivery, and it had also started generating some revenue from its customers. Money was okay. Some, as we said, some iterations in the business model are always there, but the money was flowing in. It's not like it was still just burning cash. Money was still coming in. So it was in early traction, we can say. It is not yet fully running on the platform, but the startup has started getting some traction. So early traction, we had selected that. Now scaling, that there is you are generating sustainable profits. Now scaling is where most of the startups are generally struggle, that how to delegate the control, how to keep monitoring on the repeatable business transactions. That becomes a bit of a control. But if the startup has reached that scale where the profits are maintained in, let's say, some demographic, some geography, and it is now trying to grow beyond that particular demographic or geography, then yes, that would come under the scaling. Right. The next question that they have asked is, has your startup applied for any IPR, intellectual property rights? Yes or no? What we have generally seen is that IPRs reflect the confidence that the promoters themselves have in their own idea. So if it is no, there is no harm and foul over there. But generally what we have found is, if there is an IPR or even if an application is pending, then it shows a modicum of confidence that the promoters have with respect to their idea and with respect to their business model. In this case, what we have selected is yes, because the startup had already applied for a trademark. This is the next table. The 5 different types of IPRs which are mentioned: patents, trademarks, copyrights, design, and plant variety. You can select whichever is appropriate if your client has applied for them. If it is applied for, yes, we need to mention the application number. if it is registered or granted, it asks for the registration number that is there with the department. It is always better that if you have any IPR also which is obscure, just mention it over here, because ultimately we'll see in the benefits of getting recognized as in the Startup India port DPIIT is that it helps you accelerate this patent and trademark application process very significantly. So it is better to mention that. Well, the next question is pretty obvious. Is the startup creating an innovative product, service, process, or improving existing product, service, process? Yes, obviously. Otherwise, we would not be doing this exercise. Correct. We need to mention what is it that we are exactly improving on. Is it the any product, any service, any process, or it is a combination of these? Then it becomes a bit tricky, because many a times IT startups that come to us, they have a product and service combination in that the product also is innovative and the service portion is also innovative for that. So it becomes important that we not just mention it that okay, this is innovative, this is improvement, but we also keep appropriate documentation, write down why it is important, because they clearly ask, is it an innovation or is it an improvement on already established processes? So we need to be very clear about these things, because though we may find this at times very similar, innovation, improvement, but DPIIT can send back the form saying that okay, this should not be innovative, this should be improvement, something like that. Is the startup creating a scalable business model with high potential employment generation or wealth creation? Yes, obviously. We have to select on which part we are going with, employment generation or wealth creation. Now comes the documentation part. Please submit a brief note supporting the option chosen above for innovation, improvement, and scalability. As we discussed earlier, that the clients, the artists that come to us, they have a clarity or they have an idea in their mind. The concept is there with them, but it falls down to us to put that concept on paper properly, and so that the reader of that document also gets convinced that this idea, yes, this is something innovative. Whatever we are going to write down in this as innovation, improvement, that needs to be reproduced below. I have masked this area towards the bottom of this page, but it needs to be very crystal clear as to what is the innovation, improvement, scalability, because we cannot just mention that okay, this is the innovation, this is the improvement that this company is going for, because innovation, improvement, and scalability, just they need to have a benchmark, they need to have a reference point which is there in the present market, or a problem which is there in the present market that needs to be solved. We need to be very careful when we are drafting, because we need to also mention briefly that what has been the issue, what is the current benchmark which is set in the market, and how is this product or this service going to help us surpass it and have a scalable business model based on that. How is this company starting a new business which is not person dependent but a process dependent thing? What are its systems, what are its ambitions, visions, that vision and everything that needs to be mentioned clearly over here. Okay. Yeah. The next part is startup activities. It never harms when the startup is already recognized or the startup has any award which it has received by any other body, organization, government body, anything. If you have that, then you have to mention yes. And we have to mention also attach, we will see below, there are a few attachments that also need to be done, that this attachment also becomes a part of this whole submission, if any award or anything that you have. The first question, what is the problem that the startup is solving? We saw in the previous one that please submit a brief note on the innovation, improvement, and scalability. It comes, we need to be a bit detailed over here. What is the problem that the startup is solving? Generally, somewhere between 200 to 300 words is the, preferred response, because if we go and explain it in brief, then there is a chance that some or the other angle of that problem is missed out while writing, or if it is, or it is missed out due to the compression of the thought. What the problem the startup is trying to solve? So if it is some medical issue, if it is some delivery related issue, if it is some security related issue, if it is some financial or lending sort of that issue, then those problems that are there in the current present scenario in our economy, that those need to be clearly mentioned over here. If you have examples, nothing like it. Right. So the next one is, how does your startup propose to solve this problem? Now we need to be very articulate with this answer, that whatever problem we are mentioning, all the facets of that problem, right from the root cause up to root cause, who, how, and when, basically all the WH type questions that result in the problem, those need to be addressed one by one, that how this new product, this new service, this improvement in process, how it is going to solve or help solve that problem. Now let us imagine that, okay, something like Zomato in this case, what would it write over here is that, okay, people maybe they don't have the time, they don't have access, some restaurants are not delivering food but people want them. So that is the gap that they are seeing in the market, which they want to address using their product. Third one is, what is the uniqueness of your solution? What is it so unique, so innovative that you're doing that has not been done, or at least not tried and been successful previously by any other business? This is a good chance, or this third question is a good chance for the startup to let loose and write its entire concept, that how it came to be and how it is unique, how it is the only one either willing, able, capable, or allowed to do this particular solution or thing that is in question. Basically, we need to mention our USP, the client's USP in this. How does your startup generate revenue? Now comes the business angle in this, that okay, this all concept is fine, this is the problem that you see, this is the issues that you see, this is how you are proposing to solve them. Then how does your startup make money at the end of it? Because ultimately this is an economic effort. You need to show that this is a growing business, this is ultimately going to make some money. Are you going to directly take money from your end customers? Is it going to be a discount based, volume based thing? Is it going to be something that you compile the data, you do some survey, you sell some product, sell some service at a discount, compile data, and then sell that data to a third party, to interested people, according to whatever criteria or information that you gave. How is it that the business is going to generate revenue out of solving this problem? That needs to be clearly mentioned. There is it needs to be put down to point. It cannot be a creative thing which is mentioned over here. It needs to be very rational and financially sound. Right, then we come to self-certification. We need to upload the incorporation or registration certificate of the body, of the business over here, and ultimately upload it. When we go and click on this add more thing button over here, वो नीचे एक दूसरे ऑप्शन ओपन हो जाते हैं. So it allows you to upload any trademark document that you have, trademark or IPR application that you have. It also allows you to upload or link your website over here. It also allows you to upload your pitch deck, your any videos, promotional videos, links to the videos, obviously links to those videos over here, and submit this application. Why is it important for her to have the other attachments? We'll just go a bit go on this a bit briefly. The registration incorporation certificate is fine. Whatever you have written till date is fine. But when you have a working website, when you have maybe YouTube videos, Vimeo videos, when you have prepared a pitch deck for any new investments to new stakeholders, partners, you have any registered patents, trademarks, IPRs, etc., it goes to further convince the people at DPIIT that yes, whatever I am saying or whatever I am writing up there, it has some meaning. And it is always better to have these videos, these pitch decks, websites linked over here, because a visual presentation in the form of your video or pitch deck always speaks much more than whatever you have written. We may have missed out on a few things in the writing or the write-up that was submitted up in those 4 questions. But if we have a video, if we have pitch deck, then definitely the gaps get filled up. The people over there become much more confident, and they can rely on whatever we are saying. And obviously there is a self-certification. We have to click on save, and then that's it. The submission, the application is submitted in this case. What happens is, once you submit this application, then the DPIIT team runs through the application, sees the document. It also does out of the box search of whatever we are doing, whatever the client is doing, and it comes back with some queries. If there is insufficient documentation, if there is some discrepancy in the answers which are given, believe me, DPIIT does come back to you, and it does propose some changes to whatever you have written over there, and we have to solve it. There is no other way around. Once we submit this application, the dashboard changes. Over here, recognition form status, it shows viewed, it shows in process when you submit it. The application over here was done successfully, so it is showing as view details. You click this and it shows your statutory records, whatever we have filled up upwards. Once DPIIT recognizes our startup, it gives this certificate of recognition to the startup, which has the name of the company, the constitution, and you will see this, the last line in the certificate. It says the startup is working in this industry and this, as self-certified by them. Whatever we choose in the first slide that we saw of the registration, just 1 second, I'll just go there. Yeah, the industry sector and categories, whatever we filled up, once the registration is processed, this industry sector is for which we get the recognition. The client gets the recognition. And obviously, it has a date of issue and it has a validity up to. If the date of issue is, the validity up to is generally within 10 years from the incorporation date of the entity. The date of issue is whenever, after all the troubleshooting queries and submissions, once the DPIIT is satisfied, it gives that is the date of issue for this certificate. Just to be clear, this is the DPIIT recognition certificate. This is the first step for to be eligible for all the other taxation benefits that we will see. We are not going to confuse this registration as the eligibility of a client or the company or LLP to be eligible for ATIAC, then exemption for 5627B. We are not going to confuse that with this. Having this certificate of registration, it just opens up a platform for you, for the client, that this platform is now accessible to everyone. You can take benefit of the schemes. In the first page that we see, the login page, the network, the schemes, the programs that are there in the Startup India page become available to you once you have this certificate of recognition from DPIIT. Now it is up to us as to how we have to go about with the benefits. So what are don't get me wrong, there are still some benefits involved when we get the certificate of recognition. What are the incentives which are available? Schemes from various departments of the government, they are available when you are registered as a startup on by DPIIT recognition. The first one and the most popular one is income tax, ATIAC, the 3-year tax holiday. The patents and trademark application, there is a fast tracking of application. If you have a trademark which is pending and you have already been recognized as a startup by DPIIT, we can submit to the authority saying that, okay, we are a registered startup, please help us in fast tracking this application. And believe me, the authority takes cognizance of this submission. Raising of funds, SIDBI and other financial institutions provide easy funding. There are many schemes, almost some 150, some 200 schemes, if I'm not wrong, which are available on the Startup India portal just when you get registered as this DPIIT registered startup. SIDBI has given a lot of help as far as raising funds is concerned, debt is concerned, even equity is concerned. You guys may have read in the news recently that there was a Startup India seed fund which was launched, some 945 crores ka fund which they want to give as seed funding to an equity. We all know that there are lots of rounds of funding, seed funding, Series A, B, C, etc. So the seed fund is also made available by the government of India. It is expected that it will help at least 36,000 entrepreneurs, if I'm not wrong, to get their businesses running and get their initial funding at a reasonable cost. Then there are relaxations in government tender preconditions. Many a times we see that there are tender preconditions
The tender either requires the applicant to have some X years of experience. It requires the applicant to deposit some percentage of the total tender value as EMD. At times, most of the times, these government tenders, if you are a registered startup, have a clause that waives these preconditions, provided you furnish this certificate of recognition from DPIIT. That helps the business to grow and be competitive on the government tendering, government procurement platforms. And it also helps the business to gain that experience, first of all. Then it also allows you access to government e-marketplace, the GEM as they call it. And the address is www.gem.gov.in. I'm sure most of you must have already visited this platform. It is, if you have any client which is also registered as MSME in any category, then these mails keep on coming in that, okay, get registered on the GEM platform. This is some new facility has come up. There is a e-procurement for this. If you have registered on the government e-marketplace platform with your specific industry and all the details, then the relevant tenders, the relevant information is passed on to you. Well, basically free of cost on the government e-marketplace. But it is essential to get registered as a startup first for that to happen. And ultimately, the ROC also gives us a facility for easy winding up. As we have seen, there is a high uncertainty which is involved in the startup sector. So it should not be a hassle for a business owner to go under liquidation and all these things and still face a lot of scrutiny, which a normal business would. So that's why this facility of easy liquidation and winding up has been made available to all the eligible startups, registered startups. Next one is access to incubators, mentors, and accelerators. Well, these phrases are very interesting. What constitutes an incubator? There have been many incubators. There are many incubators which have come up post the launch of this scheme in 2016. But to name one of the few popular incubators which were there even before this scheme is one of the most popular ones is the IIT Bombay incubator. I don't know whether you have heard of this or not, but this IIT Bombay incubator has been responsible for the launch of many startups. The incubator, as the name suggests, helps the business to get the right connections. It helps the business as far as advice is concerned, access to different necessities of running a business is concerned. An incubator basically takes care of all the basic non-operational, or it helps you to take care of all the non-operational sides of your startup, so that you don't concern yourself. Many a times these incubators tie up with many accounting firms, many CA firms, to provide some accounting service to their all the startups or the businesses which are there in the incubator. So lots of things, lots of opportunities there. Mentors. So what is a mentor? Mentor is not generally, mentor is not a constituted or incorporated body. A mentor is generally an individual who has had some experience with respect to startups, either post the scheme or before the scheme. That, okay, you have seen particular companies grow, startups, businesses grow. You have advised them as far as scalability is concerned, or you have advised them as far as legalities of the business are concerned, as far as funding a startup is concerned, or even taking the startup to an IPO stage is concerned, anything of that sort. Any person who may have that capacity or that willingness to help other startups to come up and have that chance at becoming a unicorn startup, generally get registered as mentors on the Startup India portal. The accelerators in this case help the businesses to either scale up their existing model. These guys are uh, experts in their fields. They point out some mistakes you may have. The startup may have some issue with their product, some service, some small change in the process, and it can adapt easily to a scalable model. That is an accelerator. Accelerators come in at a very advanced stage in the life of a startup. When we register to Startup India, or when the business gets registered as a recognized DPIIT startup, access to incubators, mentors, accelerators on the Startup India portal is available. You can directly log into the portal and contact these guys, or filter out which fields these guys are working on, maybe geographically, some specific heavy specialization that they are doing, whatever the way you want it. There are lots of thousands of options which are available over there. And along with that, there are various state subsidies and schemes. If I remember correctly, Maharashtra state came up with new incubator facilities at Satara, Solapur, Nagpur, if I'm not wrong, which are dedicated to a particular kind of industry. Some are dedicated to the auto sector, some may be dedicated to IT sector, some may be dedicated to chemical innovation, energy sector. Energy is a big thing now, many startups in energy. So states offer these subsidies and schemes for the eligible startups which are recognized by DPIIT. So these are a few things which or benefits which are available once you get registered as a startup on Startup India platform. Now, we come to the next part, which is the second part, the taxation of startups. So the taxation of startups, this whole section will revolve around these 5 points: the applicability of special tax provisions of Section 80 IAC, which was newly introduced post the Startup India scheme. There is a separate further application that is required to be done to avail the benefits of Section 80 IAC. And believe me, that application is more thorough and more detailed than this registration or recognition application that we saw just now in part 1. So this is not to be mistaken. The application for 80 IAC is different from the application to be registered as a startup and with DPIIT on Startup India. Application to 80 IAC, that it is available on Startup India portal itself, but this application opens up only when you have successfully first been recognized as a startup by DPIIT. There are a few conditions which are ensuing because of 80 IAC, taking the benefit of 80 IAC, and some documents that additional compliance that we need to do, additional documentation that we need to maintain, furnish in a timely manner. And there are some precautionary measures that we are going to discuss. That okay, some some signs that we need to be wary of, some things that we need to avoid or advise our clients to avoid once they are registered under 80 IAC, or if they are thinking of getting registered under 80 IAC. Right. So what is Section 80 IAC? 80 IAC, to be very brief or very using a very layman's language, 80 IAC gives you a 3 consecutive year tax holiday within the first 10 years. Obviously, the eligibility of being a recognized startup is for the first 10 years. Within the first 10 years, any 3 consecutive years you can choose, and you can that entity can have 100% deduction of profits and gains which are derived from the eligible business. 100%. All the other incomes and other gains that they may derive, they are still subject to tax, but the eligible startups, eligible business, it can claim 100% deduction of such profits and gains. Obviously, it needs to first get registered. To be registered under ATIC, getting this DPIIT recognition is a precondition. Why I said that this application is a bit thorough is because it requires you to upload a video, it requires you to upload a pitch deck, it requires you to upload many other documents, and further it also requires requires the company to upload CA certified financials. As chartered accountants, as we know that there is a big difference between when we use the words certified and audited. To be on the safer side, I'm assuming that it does not exactly mean certified, because certified is true and correct. I'm assuming that CA audited financials is what is expected on the portal. But still, the wording over there is CA certified. All the applications that we had done for ATIC recognition, audited financials were uploaded, not the certified ones, audited ones. Okay. So ATIC application, what all is required in ATIC? Okay, sorry. The following documents need to be submitted: the memorandum of association or LLP deed, as the case may be. The ATIC, when we are doing this application, we had one case, I remember last year, where the memorandum of association which was uploaded, there was some slight change in the main objects, some clause of the MOA for a startup, which was recorded, which was obviously done on the MCA website, but by some because of some error, the old version of memorandum of association was uploaded by mistake. The ATIC application came back with a query saying that whatever you have uploaded on the Startup India portal is not matching with whatever you have uploaded on the ROC portal. Well, the two thoughts came to mind. Okay, fine. First one was okay, theek hai, mistake ho gaya. But the second was, okay, you have access to ROC website, right? So what was the point of uploading this memorandum of association? Well, anyways, what is required is the SPICE forms that we submit, SPICE 32 forms, I think. SPICE MOA, SPICE AOA, those need to be uploaded. The LLP deed, yes, LLP deed, the recent one which was uploaded, if the deed has been amended by using LLP form 3, then the latest deed needs to be uploaded. These documents need to be certified by the director or the authorized signatory, whosoever. Board resolution. If you have passed board resolutions to be registered as a startup, then those resolutions are required. The true copy of those resolutions is required. It just goes to show to the conviction of the company. Annual accounts and income tax return of startup for the last 3 financial years. These annual accounts, these need to be CA certified, CA audited. The income tax return for the last 3 financial year, the full 3 sets of ITRs need to be uploaded. The 3 full sets of your financials, notes, audit report, everything needs to be uploaded. Copy of ITR acknowledgement, conditional, though it is mentioned conditional on the website, it is always recommended to have this ITR acknowledgement. Many a times, to be on the safer side, what we do is the income tax returns and other documents such as this ITR acknowledgement, we also ask the client to certify them, to do a true copy of sorts for the company or for the LLPs with the stamp and everything, so that there remains no question as to the authenticity. Then we come to the startup video clip, and then we come to the pitch deck. The ATIAC form, it has two attachments additionally, wherein they have given thorough instructions as to how this startup video clip needs to be recorded, or how this pitch deck needs to be presented. What I'll try to do is, I have those PDFs with me. I'll just go a bit, delve in them a bit briefly. Yeah. I hope you're able to see this. The pitch deck guidelines are very detailed. What is expected out of your pitch deck that is submitted? There needs to be detailed information about this product services. There needs to be a brief about how whatever you're doing, how is it innovative. See, we saw all these things we answered in the initial DPIIT recognition, but this pitch deck needs to be very detailed. So there is no, you cannot leave any corner unturned. You cannot just say कि okay ठीक है ये नहीं लिखा तो चलेगा ये समझ जाएगा. No. We don't want to take those chances. At times they reject that also. We will see at the end of this presentation, there is one slide for statistics, which we have mentioned that there are almost 15,000 DPIIT recognized startups as on, I think, last year sometime. And out of them, some 300 odd startups have only received ATIAC recognition, which is like less than, I would say, which is almost like 0.8%. I will come to the statistics, but this is the condition. So it needs to be this thorough. The directory details, their educational qualification, experience, formal role, current designation, shareholding patterns, citizenship details of directors and shareholders. Which one is the team details, the core team of any startup. Generally, for any startup, the core team will be the same as the shareholder directors of the startup, because generally these initial guys, they are paid more by sweat equity and rather than monetary compensation. The team details, other specific government approvals which they have, revenue model. Okay, revenue model, generally revenue model is where we have to pitch in the funding received from private investors historically, etc. So basically wo startup ka pura history geography is what they have asked over here. This PDF file is available on the portal. I think I have mentioned the link also towards the end of it. So these are the pitch deck guidelines which are which a startup is supposed to follow to get the DPIIT recognition. So ATIAC recognition. Now we come to the video guidelines. That the video should ideally be 2 to 3 minutes long and be no longer than 5 minutes. It needs to showcase the working of product, proof of concept developed by your startup. Proof of concept is very essential, especially if you are an IT industry software startup. It needs to be very thorough. If you are a product or a software based startup, showcasing or demonstrating prototype of the product software products developed by you is compulsory. You cannot just say that we are going to do this. So ideation, validation stage startups, they cannot by definition apply for this deduction. Only maybe the early traction and scaling scaling stage startups, they can or they should apply for this deduction, ATIS. If you are providing software or technology services, then showcase a demonstration, prototype walkthrough of the products developed for your key clients. Please also showcase the market traction that our product has generated through either online customer use, client testimonials. And the video needs to be uploaded on a third-party video hosting platform such as YouTube or Vimeo. You can upload it on the Google Drive, but it needs to be unrestricted link. So they are pretty tech savvy. They know what they are asking from the businesses, and it's the business who needs to be very careful while projecting themselves in front of the ATISC panel. So these documents, these videos, pitch deck, we need to upload. Where can you find the form? In the once we click on the dashboard, once we log in, we have to click on DPIIT recognition, and over here we see form ATISC. The status is not applied. The application form detail we can apply it because the first box, the status is approved. It is a recognized startup. Form ATISC. The name of the startup, the date of incorporation, registration of the startup, number, address, business location, etc. It is at times automatically picked up from the startup portal itself. So we don't need to fill them up. They are automatically populated, including the DIPP number, which is this certificate number. This certificate number on the top left corner. Right. The memorandum of association, as we discussed, it needs to be uploaded here. There is a sufficient guidance. Toolkit for MOA. You are requested to upload authorized signatory director certified MOA. If you possess a SPICE MOA, then you are requested to please take a printout of the same and upload a scan of the printout, or to convert the SPICE MOA into printable PDF before uploading. Please do not upload SPICE MOA as it is. So they are clear what they want, about what they want. Board resolutions, if any. Annual accounts of the startup. Balance sheet, trading and profit and loss account. We need to be very sure that we are also uploading the other accounting policies, notes to accounts, bifurcating them into which ones are linked with the balance sheet and which ones are linked with the profit and loss account. It clearly says that 3 years updated financial statements for the past 3 years from the year of incorporation. Now, why is it showing only 2 years? In this case is because the entity for which जिसका screenshot ये लिया है, that was incorporated in 2000 financial year 1920. So there is no scope for any ifs and buts कि previous रहेगा. If there are a few cases where all three are appearing because the entity was incorporated in 2018-19. Startup video link, we need to paste the YouTube link over here, and we need to be sure that the link is working. At times the accounts or the video sharing criteria on YouTube needs to be public, made to viewable to public at large. Uploading the pitch deck, yes, we saw the pitch deck guidelines. Now clarifications. What happens is when DPIIT comes back with, when the ATIC people come back with queries, there is a clarification or the issues raised box at the bottom of this screen after this, the certificates that you're seeing. Over there, some clarifications which may be sought, some issues which may be raised by the DPIIT appear over there, and we need to file the clarifications for them over here. Right. Details of certificate granted under section 56 of income tax, if any, the angel tax. We'll come to this once this ATIC application and this is over. There is obviously self-certification by the authorized signatory. And it's not so easy that, okay, yes, submit ho gaya and then we directly get the certificate of eligible business. There is a lot of to and fro between the department and the applicant, that, okay, this is the query, that is the query. But at the end of it, this is how a successful business, successful eligible business certificate looks like. The certificate number which is mentioned in the top right corner over here, the certificate number is different from the earlier certificate of recognition number that we saw for DPIIT. Now it clearly shows that, okay, is eligible to avail tax benefits as a startup, date of issue, so and so, so and so. In the earlier income tax portal, I mean, I tried accessing the portal right now, but I don't think that option is still active or appearing over there. In the old income tax e-filing portal, if we go under the e-services e-filing or my account drop down that we say, there was a second last option over there which had the DPIIT eligibility option, that we need to put in the DPIIT certificate number, which was given to us as a certificate of eligible business. This certificate, not the earlier one. This certificate number we need to mention in the DPIIT column, and the in AO or whosoever is the body at the other end of this portal, they get intimated about this new development that we have. So once this certificate eligible business is obtained, okay, most of the things are now done. You are now eligible to get the tax benefit. That doesn't mean that you immediately get the tax benefit. We have to apply separately to get the 3 consecutive years, but then it becomes just an option for us to choose that which 3 years we want to apply for. Generally, what we have seen is that since the period of, they have given a period of 10 years for us, generally it is the last years which they go for. That maybe year 7, 8, 9, maybe in most aggressive case I've seen, they have gone in year 4, 5, 6, but it is very rare. So maybe in years 8, 9, 10, 7, 8, 9, we will generally see that this certificate of eligible business is put to good use. But till the time, any startup will in the initial years burn a lot of cash. It will be a cash guzzler. So there will be a lot of losses which may accumulate during the initial years. You may want to take the benefit of these losses and set off future profits. But to take the benefit of this tax holiday, we must advise our clients that, okay, Baba, you need to, this is a framework, time frame of given of 10 years. At least by year 8, 9, 10, you should have these profits which we can put under this exemption. Otherwise, the whole exercise of applying for this ATIAC becomes only for this section 5627B, which we'll see later on. And this good scheme or this good incentive of tax exemption or tax deductible profits and gains is lost on the companies, or rather it is not taken full advantage of. Right. So the first two subsections of ATIAC read as follows. Where the gross total income of an assessee being an eligible startup includes any profits, gains derived from an eligible business, there shall, in accordance with and subject to the provisions of this section, be allowed in computing the total income a deduction of an amount equal to 100% of the profits and gains derived from such business for 3 consecutive assessment years. 100% 3 consecutive assessment years. So once the benefit is triggered, you have to claim it for 3 consecutive assessment years. The deduction specified in subsection 1 may, at the option of the assessee, be claimed for any 3 years out of the 10 years beginning from the date in which the eligible startup is incorporated. Obviously, for the first 10 years only the DPIIT recognition is valid. So that obviously takes care of this another second subsection 2 condition. There are certain strings which are attached to this ATIAC claim. It also refers to the provisions of subsection 5 and subsection 7 to 11 of section ATIA. What do these subsections say? Well, what they say is the business should not have previously used plant and machinery. That is, the plant and machinery either that you are using, it needs to be freshly bought by you. One, it cannot come down as a sale from an associated entity which you have good relations with or have significant control. But it also gives an exception that okay, if you have brought it to India from abroad, then it will be considered as a new plant and machinery for the case of this eligible business under ATIAC. The undertaking should not be a subsidiary. It was made very clear. ATIA requires an audit report under in form ATCCB, which is done by a chartered accountant. So this is one additional opportunity for us as practitioners. But when I went and saw that ATCCB form right now, so it's a bit confusing because it does not mention ATIAC as one of the applicable sections, but the details which they have asked for in ATCCB are fairly similar and relevant to what we are discussing in under ATIAC. The amalgamation of this entity into another company would result in cancellation of benefits for the previous year when the merger took place. Obviously, I mean, if you are selling off your entity and it is that business is merging into something else, some big entity, this will result in a loss of benefit. It also gives one more clause that if you have, let's say, one is your eligible business, the startup business for which you have ATIAC recognition, and let's say the entity has another service vertical or product which is not an eligible business within the definition of ATIAC, then in that case, the provisions given under the for arm's length for transfer pricing apply to the services or goods transferred between these two businesses of the same entity. So the company needs to be very careful when they are doing, let's say, physical demarcation or logical demarcation between the two businesses as far as taking the benefit of this ATIAC is concerned, because then it can come under question, arm's length pricing. Well, what it also does is there is these are all the benefits preconditions or conditions subsequent to availing the ATIC benefit. The general trend of any startup, any business which wants to grow, is that the venture capital funding, sorry, not the VC has a separate exemption, but it takes in funding from various angel investors, private equity, some foreign fund, some foreign investor which will come in. So at times the section 79 prevents the business from claiming or bringing forward the losses of previous years, because more than 51% of the shareholding has changed in the previous year. But there is a new proviso which is introduced to section 79(1), which says that, I'm paraphrasing on this, if the entity concerned over here is an eligible business and recognized under ATI, eligible for ATIC, then these 51% conditions, 51% condition will not apply so far as the percentage of shareholding between the pre-transaction and pre-transaction shareholders remains the same. So by my reading, I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong in this. By my reading, if let's say there were 4 promoters with 25% stake each, and if a new party comes in who invests and takes up 60% of the stake in the business will be eligible to claim the benefit of brought forward losses, so far as all the 4 previous investors remain with the company and they all have equal proportion of shareholding, that is 10% each. So that is the proviso to 79(1). 79(1) also gives it also lists down a few conditions, but which are very obvious and apparent as far as this ATIC and startup business is concerned. So this concludes the main part of ATIC. Some additional compliance that we need to take care of, which is not directly mentioned by ATIC, but 10 CCB needs to be filed before the due date mentioned in 44 AB, tax audit due date. Separate schedules are mentioned in the earlier ITR utility. If you see for ITR 6, there were 2 tabs which are available, SH2 and AL2, which were supposed to be filled up by registered startup, eligible startup. SH1 and AL1 were supposed to be filled up by normal private entities, or private limited companies or privately held entities. But SH2 and AL2 are specific schedules which need to be filled up by in businesses which are registered as startups and are availing ATIC benefit. There needs to be separate demarcation between eligible business and other business, and there may be a chance that there will be some added scrutiny as far as this ATIC benefit is concerned, which happens otherwise also. I mean, this ATIC, ATIA, all these other benefits that are there, these are in detail scrutinized right from the chapter of, I think, Constitution wherein prohibited goods are mentioned, this, that. So we can expect a detailed scrutiny as far as ATIC benefit is concerned. I tried downloading the utility for ITR 5 to ITR 6, but the updated one is not yet available, uploaded on the portal. So maybe once we get the chance to see this utility, things may change or some new angle may come up in this startup companies. So this takes care of the second part, the ATIC part. Now we'll come to the third one, which is the angel tax provisions, which are granted relief because of this ATIC recognition. Yeah. So as we all know, this angel tax had caused quite some havoc in the past few years because maybe the assessing officers refused to accept maybe the valuation reports that were presented to them. Maybe appropriate valuations were not done and the half baked reports were presented, or maybe in some cases there are many cases wherein they just went by book value and rather than DCF, which was also allowed. And by law, it is you at the option of assessee to choose either of these. If the assessee chooses DCF, the AO cannot change the method of valuation and say, okay, no, this is wrong. So lots and lots of litigation has happened because of this angel tax. And what it does is it just exposes the whole premium beyond the face value of the shares for under income tax, under income from other sources, which is quite draconian, I would say, because otherwise no person would not put money into a business if they did not see value in it. Yesterday, Drishti madam's lecture, there was a good line which said, I think Warren Buffett said that value is what you get and the price is the amount that you pay for it. So if the buyer is aware of what the pitfalls are and they are accepting some valuation, then in genuine cases, maybe it was unnecessary to go through all the hassle of a litigation. But okay, I mean, because of this startup recognition, they have come up. I have mentioned that notification below in this presentation, which addresses this concern that there will not be any scrutiny of this. There will be an exemption from 56(2)(7)(b scrutiny as far as recognized startups are concerned. However, the same notification also gives some restrictions on the use of this investment. It says that the amount which is received as funding cannot be used to buy land and building for residential houses. Many startups, 80%, 90% of the startups start at home. Some 4 friends come together and form a company at one of their friends' home address. So this investment that you are bringing into the company cannot be used to buy any residential house or building or land appurtenant thereto. No loans or advances cannot be made out of this investment unless financial activity is the business of the eligible startup. You cannot have the business cannot have any further capital contribution into any other entity. So ideally it cannot have a subsidiary as per this definition. It cannot invest those funds in shares and securities, vehicles which cost more than 10 lakhs, unless flying of vehicles is your business as eligible startup, and it cannot buy jewelry. Obviously, the same caveats also apply there. If you want to check it out, please refer the link which is given below. I think you can just note it down, or it is available readily on the Startup India website. Okay. Any startup has to, which is recognized under ATIAC, has an option to fill in this form, which is called Form 56. It requires basic details of the startup: name of the startup, date of incorporation, incorporation number, registered address, nature of business, contact details, email ID, permanent account number, etc. What it also asks is to upload a declaration on the company letterhead. Well, this declaration is nothing but the Form 2. If you click on this link also, you can get that form. But if you are curious, just Google Form 2 Startup India. You will get that declaration form. It is a simple 1-page form. It basically takes sort of an indemnity from the director saying that, okay, we are ATIAC eligible business. We are recognized by certificate number so and so. And in case anything goes wrong, or if any change is there, then we will intimate you accordingly, and this angel tax exemption will go away. Declaration signed it, and obviously we need to upload the declaration on the company letterhead over here. This submission is pretty straightforward, so there is not much of a hassle as far as this form 2 and form 56 is required. I mean, of course, come on, you have got your client registered as a recognized as an eligible startup from DPIIT, then you got an ATIC recognition. So just filling up this form will not even be easier than a piece of cake for such businesses. What additional care that we need to take once this 5627B exemption kicks in is that even in the general schedule of ITRs earlier, there was a disclosure which required the detailed shareholding of the entity. Disclosure with respect to the detailed shareholding of the entity. It needs to be properly filled in with all the dates, cost, and everything. Cost is not there, but it is in SH1, so that needs to be filled in properly. The individual or the institutional shareholders, they will need to file their ITRs. In the general section, they need to mention the exact shareholding in the startup. Then therein you need to mention the date of investment, the rate of investment, whatever investment you have additionally done during the year, the rate for that, whatever you have sold during the year, and the closing balance. Along with, I think, the ISIN or something like that, but I think ISIN is not still there as far as private unlisted investments are concerned. And obviously, yes, it is always, for any investor, it is always preferable to have a valuation report that justifies the value handy within like a time gap of 3 months from the date of investment, which justifies the premium or the amount of investment which the investor has done. Because this may end up picked up for a limited scrutiny based on your nature of transaction, and even especially at the time of exit of an investor, it will be very much required to have that report handy. Well, this we have seen as far as from a more company angle. What happens to investors because of this Startup India recognition? Well, they will still be subject to a scrutiny. There will still be evaluation which is required in that. There may be a litigation as far as this is concerned. But if I'm not wrong, there will be some leniency given that the entity in which the investor is investing is already recognized under ATIC. The direct relation between the valuation derived and rules prescribed under the Act and the fund flow should be clearly established. 11U, 11UA need to be followed, and the fund flow needs to be clearly established, the dates, times, and the bank statement. The exit of investor also needs to be planned to be more smooth as far as tax compliance is concerned. Yes, obviously, the main gains that an investor or a promoter will get will be at the time of exit only, because then some business may take that startup over, they may sell it to a PE, venture capital, anything like that. They may sell their stake. So as far as this full or partial exit is concerned, that planning also needs to be pretty thorough to avoid any complication in the future. Once the compliance is done, litigation kicks in. Well, that concludes the prima facie presentation, but there is couple of more slides which I've included over here that possibly these issues may come up. That ATIC deduction, there is going to be a lot of scrutiny as far as this deduction is concerned, the same way they do for ATIC, ATIB. Profit, and especially given the current scenario, the National Faceless Assessment Center and Appeal Center, it will become a bit tedious to get all the documentation lined up, scanned, properly sequenced, and then have an effective covering letter or submission to synchronize all this submission, and so that the other person over there can derive some sense out of it, and not just to be on the safer side of it, they'll just reject the deduction and appeal mein jao. There's a hope that it doesn't happen, but there's a possibility. The period of 10 years from recognition, that may be a bit insufficient, because ideation, validation, traction, and especially in case of certain IT based startups, maybe 10 years is not a sufficient window of time, because series A, series seed funding, series A, series B, series C, all these rounds of funding, they may take up a lot more time than 10 years. And the last rounds of funding that have, those are the ones which attract higher valuation once the potential of the business is established. Section 49 applicability, okay, these gains and everything which are coming up under maybe this exemption from 5627B, it is coming up. So maybe will 14A be applicable? Don't know how it will be reflected, but the rare possibility. So these are just a few issues which I wanted to highlight in this. Maybe some relevant, maybe some not so. And a few statistics that these I have taken from the Startup India 5 years achievement report that was published on the Startup India website. That the total startups registered with Startup India are 41,000. And the total recognized startup under ATIC are 319, which is not even 1%, which is 0.8% of the total population. So just imagine the kind of hand-holding and guidance that these rest of startups which have the potential to go there will require. And it is a budding market. We cannot lose on these fronts. If you want to read that report, that 5 years achievement report is available in the following link. And a few global statistics that on a global scale, what is the market? What does the market say about the Indian performance? Though we see that Startup India in its 5 years performance records the eligible number of startups at some 41,000. As per this global website called startupranking.com, it shows that the total viable or the startups that they take cognizance of are somewhere around 10,000 in India. And it would please you to see that though the gap between the number 1 and number 2 is much high, the India comes number 2 as far as this recognition is concerned, for following United States, which the number is almost like tenfold of that in India. But obviously it is a very well developed market. So this is just a brief highlight of the startup ecosystem. What are the provisions, some precautions and benefits that startups can draw, and what practice areas we have as far as practitioners and service providers are concerned. So in case of any queries that you have, please feel free to ask. And I think I'll conclude my talk on this note. Thank you.
Hello, Swapnil. Swapnil, are you there? Okay, I will take over. Harshavardhan ji, it was really a splendid lecture. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Thank
it
you.
was really a splendid lecture. You have explained startups and its taxation in a very lucid manner, with special respect to incentives available for startups and taxation under section 80 IIC for tax exemptions. Many of us were unaware about the various provisions of startups, you have thrown light to understand them very easily. There are chances that someone may get inspired to have his own startup.
Very
Thank
much.
you very much, Harshavardhanji, once again.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you all participants for attending the lecture today. Thank you very much.
When you just it came to my mind when you just said that that some may be inspired to get a startup of their own. I think if I'm not wrong, ICAI has also come up with an incubator of its own for startups by chartered accountant promoters or something like that.
Best. The best
Yeah.
initiative, I will say.
Yes. it is.
Yes. Thank you all.
If there are any queries on this? No queries.